Haven't I warned you never to give food to this beggars? The restaurant manager yelled at Lena Moore, the waitress. Sir, please, he hasn't eaten in 2 days, whispered Lena Moore, the 29-year-old cashier with tired eyes but a heart that still believed in compassion. In front of her stood a frail, homeless man, shivering in a torn gray coat, his hands trembling as he tried to steady the cup she'd given him. She quietly pushed a plate toward him. It's on me, she said softly. Before he could even whisper, thank you, her manager's voice exploded. Lena, did you just give that away for free? Every diner turned. Forks stopped midair. Glasses rattled on tables. Yes, sir, she said, voice shaking. He's hungry. Then you can join him out there. You're fired. The restaurant fell silent. The homeless man looked down, ashamed. Lena removed her name tag slowly, tears pressing at the corners of her eyes. At the far booth, a man in an expensive navy suit and gold watch watched quietly, his expression unreadable, but his interest deeply stirred. Lena stood frozen near the counter, unsure whether to cry or defend herself. The hum of the restaurant felt heavier now, every whisper sharp with judgment. Derek, the manager, snatched the receipt roll from her hand as if erasing her from existence. Pack your things, he hissed. We don't run a charity here. The homeless man's lips quivered. I didn't mean no trouble, ma'am. Lena forced a faint smile. You didn't. You're the only one who reminded me what being human means. From the corner booth, the man in the navy suit rose. His movements were calm, deliberate, like someone used to being listened to. He looked out of place here, his polished watch catching the light, his tailored jacket too fine for a casual lunch spot. He stepped closer, pulling a few crisp $100 bills from his wallet. I'll pay for his meal, he said evenly. And hers too. Derek blinked, startled. Sir, that's not necessary. It is, the man interrupted, his tone firm but kind. Sometimes policy should never come before decency. The crowd stirred. Lena looked up, eyes glassy but curious. There was something in this stranger's calm, something that felt powerful, dangerous, and maybe life-changing. Cold wind brushed against Lena's face as she stepped out of Lennox Deli, clutching the small box of her belongings, an old notepad, a pen, and a photo of her late mother. The city noise seemed louder now. Cars honked, buses hissed, and her chest felt heavy with embarrassment and anger. The glass door opened behind her. The man in the navy suit walked out, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag. You forgot this, he said, handing it to her. Inside was the same sandwich she had given the homeless man, only this time, with her name written on the wrapper. Lena hesitated. You didn't have to. He interrupted gently. Neither did you, but you still did. His voice was calm, deep, and sincere. Not many people in this city stopped to help anyone anymore. She studied him closely. His shoes gleamed, but his eyes carried a tired kindness. You must be someone important, she said quietly. He smiled faintly. I used to think so. Today, I'm just someone who respects what you did. The homeless man approached, holding his sandwich like treasure. Miss, I'll never forget you, he said softly. Lena blinked back tears. Neither will I. Lena wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed by the attention. A few people passing by had stopped to watch, curious about the woman who got fired for kindness. Derek, her manager, stood by the glass window, arms folded, smirking as if satisfied. The man in the navy suit turned toward him and said calmly, You fired the wrong person today. His tone carried quiet authority, the kind that made people listen without understanding why. Derek scoffed. Sir, with all respect, you don't run this place. The man smiled faintly. Are you sure about that? For a brief second, Derek's face twitched with confusion. Lena glanced between them, unsure what was happening. Turning back to her, the man said, What's your name? Lena Moore, she replied hesitantly. Well, Lena Moore, he said, if you're free tomorrow morning, I'd like to talk about a job offer. Her brows furrowed. A job? Doing what? He handed her a card, heavy, embossed, and shining faintly in the streetlight. The logo read, Graham Holdings Group. I'm Ethan Graham, he said simply. CEO. The crowd gasped softly. Even Derek's confident grin disappeared. Lena just stood there, her breath catching, trying to understand what had just happened. The next morning, Lena arrived at Graham Holdings Tower, a glass skyscraper that glittered over downtown Chicago like it owned the sky. She clutched her small purse and the same paper bag from yesterday, the one with her name still written on it. The security guard took one look at Ethan's business card and instantly waved her through. As the elevator climbed, her stomach fluttered. She'd spent the night searching the company's name online, financial investments, tech startups, luxury real estate, the kind of empire she'd never imagined stepping into. When the elevator doors opened, Ethan Graham stood waiting in the lobby, smiling. You came, he said warmly. Most people would have thought it was a prank. I almost did, she replied, forcing a nervous laugh. He led her into a sunlit office overlooking the city. This isn't an interview, Ethan began. I just wanted to hear your story. No resumes, no questions. Just you. Lena hesitated, then spoke softly. I didn't feed that man for pity. I did it because I know what hunger feels like. I've been there. Ethan's expression changed. He leaned forward slightly. You've been where? She met his eyes, steady but sad. Homeless. 3 years ago. Silence filled the room. Ethan leaned back slowly, his jaw tightening. For the first time, Lena saw something shift behind his calm expression. Pain, maybe guilt. He rested his elbows on the desk, eyes fixed on the skyline. You know, he said quietly. People see a suit and assume it's always been easy. But I know what it's like to lose everything too. Lena blinked. You? He nodded. 15 years ago, before all this, before Graham Holdings, I was sleeping in my car outside a gas station. My father's business collapsed after he got sick. We lost our house overnight. I used to wash in public restrooms and hope no one noticed. Lena's eyes softened. So that's why you didn't blink yesterday. Ethan smiled faintly. Exactly. I watched you do something I'd been too proud to do back then. Help someone who reminded you of yourself. She looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. I just didn't want him to feel invisible. You didn't, Ethan said. You made the world stop for a moment, and that's rare. The room went quiet again, not uncomfortable, just honest. Two people from opposite worlds, quietly realizing they understood each other more than anyone ever had. Ethan stood and walked toward the wide window overlooking Chicago's skyline, his reflection layered over the glittering towers. Lena, he said softly, how long have you been working in restaurants? Almost 8 years, she replied. Mostly cashier and front desk jobs. I never finished college. He nodded thoughtfully. 8 years of dealing with people. That's more experience than half the managers I've met. She laughed nervously. I don't know if that's true. It is, he said, turning toward her. You see people for who they are. That's something money can't teach. Lena didn't know what to say. I'm opening a new hospitality division, real estate, fine dining, financial training for small business owners. I need someone who understands what respect means from the ground up. Someone who treats a customer and a homeless man the same way. Her heart skipped. Are you saying? Yes, Ethan interrupted. I want you to run the pilot branch. Full salary, full training, and a company apartment for 6 months. Lena stared at him, speechless. You don't even know me. He smiled gently. I know enough. Yesterday told me everything. Her eyes glistened. For the first time in years, she felt seen. 2 weeks later, Lena stood inside the newly opened Graham Hospitality Center, a sleek, glass-walled restaurant on the city's north side. She wore a crisp white blouse and a nervous smile, overseeing staff orientation while Ethan watched from a distance. He had given her full control, menus, hiring, customer service policies, all of it. But there was one unspoken rule she couldn't forget. This was her test. The first few days went smoothly. Customers loved her warmth, and the place buzzed with energy. Then came Thursday afternoon. A teenage boy wandered in, thin, nervous, holding a wrinkled $5 bill. Ma'am, he said, I just need something warm. Please. Anything. The staff froze. The cash register was mid-audit, and every meal had to be accounted for. Lena's heart pounded. The boy reminded her of the man from Lennox Deli. The same hunger, the same silent plea. She hesitated, remembering the humiliation of being fired. Then she took a breath, smiled, and handed the boy a meal. Eat first, she said quietly. We'll figure out the bill later. From the corner, Ethan watched, expression unreadable. No words, no nod, just silence. As the boy ate, Lena's hands trembled. She didn't know it yet, but this single decision would define her entire future. The next morning, Lena arrived at the restaurant early. Her stomach churned with anxiety, convinced she'd crossed the line again. The teenage boy's empty plate from yesterday still sat on a corner table, and she caught herself whispering, Please, let me not lose this chance. At exactly 9 a.m., Ethan walked in, no suit jacket this time, just a dark sweater and that calm, unreadable face. Morning, Lena, he said. Morning, sir, she replied, bracing for what felt like another firing. If it's about yesterday. He raised a hand gently. It is, but not how you think. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket and placed it on the counter. Open it. Inside was a single photograph. It was of the teenage boy, standing in a shelter, smiling beside a counselor. Ethan said quietly, his name's Ryan. He's been in our outreach program for 6 months. Yesterday, you reminded him that people still care. Lena's breath caught. Outreach program? Ethan smiled. Yes, I've been running a foundation quietly through Graham Holdings. testing how compassion survives when no one's watching. You weren't being tested for your job, Lena. You were being tested for your heart. Her eyes filled. And I passed. He nodded. With grace. A week later, Lena stood in the ballroom of the Graham Foundation for Human Dignity, the organization Ethan had founded years ago, but never publicly tied to his name. The hall was filled with business leaders, investors, and local officials. Cameras flashed as Ethan stepped to the podium. Every empire I've built, he began, came from lessons life taught me the hard way. But one woman reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That wealth means nothing without compassion. He turned toward Lena, who sat stunned at the front table, her name tag reading Director of Community Operations. This woman was fired for feeding a hungry man, he continued. And she never once asked what she would gain from doing what was right. That's the kind of leadership our world needs. The room erupted in applause. Lena's eyes welled as Ethan gestured for her to stand beside him. She'll now oversee our national initiative, restaurants that train and employ people facing homelessness, single mothers, and veterans, Ethan announced. Because one small act of kindness can rebuild entire lives. After the ceremony, Ethan leaned toward her and said softly, "You didn't just pass the test, Lena. You helped me remember who I was." She smiled. "Then we both got our second chance. That completes your 10-scene, 2,000-word, cinematic, emotional, and high RPM human story." Cashier fired after feeding a homeless man. Her next customer was a billionaire in disguise.